Welcome back
All
to
right.
another episode of Keeping It Real, estate-related content. This is North Star Pro Realty. We've got the a full crew in here. We got Tom Olson, Eric Olson, Jeremy Welter, and myself, Tyler Reese. This week's episode is Eric.
Advice? No, not advice. Mistakes to avoid for first-time home buyers.
Perfect.
So we had a discussion similar to this last week, but I definitely still have more opinions on it.
Oh,
So
yeah.
I'll go first. I'll hop in. The first one that I was going to say was that advice that I've given is to talk to your lender to figure out exactly what your monthly mortgage payment will be at certain home prices. So a lot of people will come and they'll say, hey, I got a $300,000 budget. First time home buyer. I go, great. Why do you think that? And okay, first I say great, then we go look at houses. And as they're getting interested in one, and now maybe they're looking at a house that's $320,000. I say, well, this is over the original budget that you gave me. What I think you should do is go talk to your lender and figure out, after they add in insurance, taxes, interest, all that stuff, what is your mortgage payment going to be? Because most of them are usually coming from a situation where they're paying rent already. They're used to that $1,300 a month or $1,500 a month or whatever it is. And so they're expecting their mortgage to be $1,500, maybe $1,700 a month in that, for that example. And then by the time, and they got an estimate from an online calculator that didn't include insurance.
Now
and
the
stuff.
mortgage might be,
Right, yeah.
Correct.
but it doesn't include principal and interest only, but not taxes and insurance.
Right. And so when you go and talk to your lender and they give you that information and they say, and then they come back and say, yep, this house at $300,000 is going to cost you $2,200 a month. Well, now you're $700 more per month from where you were when you were renting. And that oftentimes is kind of a shock for people. So that's my advice that I have given to first time home buyers before.
Yeah, and there's a lot of lenders that have access to like first-time home buyer courses. I know like MNFHA, Minnesota Fair Housing Association. I think that's or administration.
Administration.
They do first-time home buyer courses, and a lot of times you get a credit. Some lenders provide that. Again, double check with them. But if you go through some type of educational course, you're way better prepared for that offer, and it's not so scary. Guilty. The first time I bought a home, I thought, oh, great. And then it was a couple $100 more. I'm like, ooh, oh, okay. All right,
Ouch, that
I can do
hurts.
this. But, yeah, so completely guilty on that. But then I was, like, really thrilled that first year when I got that overage check. And I thought, does this happen every year? I get, like, a $900 kickback? And no, it hasn't happened since. It's always gone up with taxes and insurance.
Rarely it's less than what you anticipate it to be. Right?
Correct.
And I think that's true for all buyers and sellers. You know, it's hard to really go in and look at properties if you're not exactly sure what your price range you can afford. But, you know, it's obviously especially true for first-time home buyers who haven't gone through that process. The thing that I always like to bring up with first-time home buyers is after you bought this home, then what? You know, those soft expenses. And I think Tyler maybe mentioned this earlier, but furniture. You know, now if you have a yard, lawnmower, rakes.
Furniture doesn't go out in the yard, Jeremy.
Patio furniture does.
Oh, yes.
But I mean, it's those soft costs that you don't look at. You're like, oh, you know, my mortgage, I can afford $2,000 a month. So I'm going to buy a house where it's at $2,000 a month, and you're not taking into account all those extra things that now you as a homeowner have to take care of. Things to clean your house. Vacuums are expensive. I mean, cleaning supplies.
Yeah,
when you
found that out.
fill out a house, it gets really expensive. So keeping those costs in mind, I'm constantly reminding my first-time home buyers, like, think about this stuff. So let's not take your budget all the way to the max. Let's keep a contingency reserve so that once you buy your house, you can actually live in it comfortably.
For sure. We live in Minnesota. You need a snow blower. You're going to need a plow.
You don't need a snowblower. It's nice to have one, but a shovel will do.
One that has come up a lot for me is when I talk to a first-time home buyer, they say, you know, I ask them where they're looking, and they're just like, oh, you know, I don't know, anywhere within an hour of the cities or something like that. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to be sending you a ton of houses, you know, and it's just a lot more helpful and easier for us to figure out what's going to be best for them if they can do their research, their due diligence, and figure out what's going to be kind of the prime location. Even, I mean, if it's a county, that's at least we're narrowing it down. But when you say an hour from the cities and I want a split entry home or something like that, that's less than 350,000, I'm going to send you like 400 houses.
Yeah.
Good luck, you know, and
At
there,
the
it
end of the
happens.
day, what their issue is that they haven't really identified what's most important to them, and location doesn't seem to be that top. So then it's like, all right, what amenities? So it's prime example is let's narrow that down. If you could only live in 3 communities, which 3 would you be? So
Yeah.
then you can eliminate 80% of the homes that don't really matter to them.
Yeah, that's a great example. It's just one of those things where, like Eric was saying, you just kind of have to do your research. You got to kind of know what you're getting into, and it's going to make the whole process a lot easier.
One thing I've started to bring up more frequently is talking with an insurance agent and getting a good general idea of what you can expect for
General idea.
for homeowners insurance. Especially if you're coming from a rental situation, that's an expense that most first-time home buyers haven't experienced before, and insurance rates are going up. You know, Minnesota is one of the more expensive ones in the country, so that's a big component of your overall mortgage payment. That if you're not factoring in on the front end, we can get down. You can find the house that you want, and then when the numbers come together, you realize I can't afford this, and I really want this house. So having some of those preliminary discussions up front, you start working with a good insurance agent, and they can give you a ballpark idea. And then as you kind of hone in on the house that you want, obviously they'll refine that. But
And I've found I use the NerdWallet mortgage calculator. It's no affiliation, but it's just one of those that I've found out that it's easy to customize the numbers. So if you do it, you go and get an insurance quote. You can actually put your number into that. You can put the exact interest rate that you're pre-approved approximately. Like, you're not locked in at that point, but the lender can give you a good idea of where you're going to be at. So there's a lot of information that you can put in there, so you can have a really good idea what exactly your rate is going to be when you get there. So
That one seems to be the most accurate. when
I've
you kinda
liked
play
it.
around with them.
Yeah.
I do the same thing.
Pro
Send 'em
tip on that is shop around.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to a home buying, time frame, is what a great time frame to actually take a look at your entire insurance portfolio. Is talk to your agent. Many times they want to keep you, on that, but sometimes they're not as competitive. When you go to either an insurance broker, or if you're going with just the lizards of insurance. I can't name any of these because we don't want to get canceled. But like sometimes just because they've got good commercials doesn't mean they're the best insurance company for you or for this area. Anyway, so pro tip: take a yearly itinerary or a yearly inventory of your insurance portfolio.
correct. And everybody has different levels of risk. When it comes down to insurance, some people really like to be covered, and other people they're okay with the bare minimum. So that's going to be dependent on the buyer and what your comfort level is.
Yep.
But it's a real expense, and that expense is getting more a larger portion of your overall mortgage. So I think that's very important to have that information, or at least an idea, as you begin your home search process.
My hot take on this topic is going to be, you can avoid the mistake. Now, I love my dad, but he gave me one of the best pieces of advice when I bought my first home. Avoid the mistake by leaning too heavily on outside forces that aren't paying your mortgage. This is a big person decision. This is an adult decision. You have to decide what's right for you. Now, I've seen so many dads, and it's one of the most memeable things, or like that is, boy, you're walking into a home, and then you see the dad who hasn't bought a home in 30 years walk in, ready to destroy this place. Homes are different. Purchasing homes 30 years ago was different. Now, again, I don't mind if dads come along. I talk to him. It's always respectful. But when I said, hey, Dad, I think I'm going to buy this house. This is my first house. You want to come and take a look? And he said, no. My dad and I are really close. and I'm just like, what?
Dad, I've got to move out at some time, all right?
Hey, Dad. Yeah, I was living in the basement at the time. Hey, Dad, I put an offer in this house. Can you come during the inspection? And he said, no. I said, why? He goes, this is a big boy decision. This is on you. It's go there, go through it. trust the process, and kind of going back and forth. And it was where he came from. That it was when when he was buying his first house. My mom and dad, his grandma and grandpa. They were a part of it. Now I think they were doing some of the financing part of it. I'm not 100% sure on those details. But they had a little bit of a say, and they said, "Oh no, this is too much work for you. Too much work for you." And then later to find out, 40 years later, Grandma goes to my dad, "Oh man, you really should have bought that house. We really loved that one." And he goes, "You said not to." so that's where he was coming from. And I remember a couple of them. I've been sworn at by dads, but we've left friends. It was just like, hey, here's my personal story, and I think you can understand that. Oh, or if you are in that point where, if you're an agent listening to this, is if a dad is there or the uncle or the best friend, again, who's not paying the mortgage for, the buyer, is when they're coming through an inspection and it is being torn apart by the inspector of just saying, hey, there's negative grade towards the house. Okay, every home has that. We've been in enough homes. And, dad's like, oh, yeah, you get water in the basement. Like, oh, hey, Dad, how do you fix that? What would you do to fix this one? And then it kind of validates their position of being there and show how much they know. And then it actually moves it along and forward. So it's kind of a hack of, getting into a dad's brain of saying, yep, you can save the day here, but don't ruin my day. So anyway, I don't know if that sounds too aggressive, but I think it's a big thing is, one, be prepared. This is an adult decision of, home buying process. So don't make the mistake by leaning too heavily on the people that aren't actually paying your mortgage.
Correct.
Definitely.
All right. If you ever want to get a hold of us, go ahead and click the links or visit northstarprorealty.com.